Hello, hello. Welcome to the class. Just please let me know if you can see and hear me. Our broadcasting guys, the software guys, had done some changes, but they didn't let us know. I just hopped on today to do a live class, and suddenly there's all these funny changes. So I had to zoom around, changing links so that you can get in and stuff. So sorry about that. Hopefully we can get everybody in now. When I click the join class button. Alrighty, let's just see when Sherry can see us. Have you got your pencils in your sketchbook out? I think we've been promising to do I've been anyway. I've been promising to do some colored pencil stuff for ages now, so here we are. Good stuff. Well, that's wonderful. I just want to see if I can get Sherry to catch up with us. If you've just joined us, welcome. We'll start in a few seconds. I just want to make sure I've got everybody up and running. Say hello in the chat box in the meantime. Great to have you here. That's better. Sherry, welcome. Nina. Yeah, like I was saying to Val, the broadcasting guys, they changed the software, and YouTube had done all sorts of other updates on their side. But they don't let you know. You just sort of got to smell these things. So I had to change all sorts of links on the website so you guys can get in. Welcome, Patricia. No worries. We haven't started yet. Must say it's warming up beautifully here now. We had a pretty cold polar blast zap us last week, but now it's warming up quite nicely again. So I'm happy about that. So besides Val, who else has got their colored pencils out? Nina, if you tell me it's in the 90s, it means nothing because we work in Celsius. So I don't know if it's 90 hot or is it cold. To me, it sounds blazing hot because for us, 30, anything over 30 degrees Celsius is like scorching hot. 40 degrees is you can't live. You need to stay indoors. No worries, Sherry. Any pencils for today will do the trick. Okay, cool, Nina. Well, that's nice. Hot is always good in my books. Alrighty, let's see. I'm going to give it until 1:15. I know it's just a little bit of time, but we did have a bit of hassles getting in, so I'd rather just make sure that everybody has had a chance to sneak in like a mail-in that's just sneaked in there, so that we don't leave everybody behind. So let's take a look. (90°F is 32°C. Yeah, that is blazing hot, Nina. Wow. I didn't think you guys would be that hot this time of the year. That's quite amazing, eh? Hey, Zane. Welcome. Alrighty, guys. I think we're close enough. I think let's get going. I think everybody that wanted to get in is now in. Therese, I see you've put your hand up. Does that mean you've got your webcam and your camera and your mic and everything set up so that you can chat to me? Just let me know in the chat box, then I'll hand it over to you. Ah, there you put your hand down again. And I'm glad you're in too, Annie. Well, I'll get you sorted after the class. It was just a bit of a rush this morning to make sure I get the class running, and then I see the email come through that you needed some help. So I just made the quickest plan I could. Yeah, all right. I think everybody's in that wants to be in. That's great. So let me just get myself all lined up here again. Hello and welcome to the class today. So today we're going to be doing an introduction to colored pencils. So if you've got some colored pencils and your sketchbook, welcome to work along. If you don't, doesn't matter. What I'm going to be explaining today is basically the ABCs. This is a pencil of colored pencil drawing, so nothing major. So if you haven't got, just sit back, relax, watch along, let it all sink in, and then after the class you'll be more informed to go out and buy your pencils. So I think that's probably the most appropriate place to start. Is let's go take a look at what kind of pencils that we get for colored pencil drawing. So with a class like this, I've always had to pack out the kitchen sink. So my table over here is just chockers full of stuff. That includes a whole bunch of different types of pencils. All right, so the first one I've got up the top here is that little set that you would buy for the kids when they need to do some coloring at school and so on. So you get basically 3 types of colored pencil, and it all comes down to how they actually make the lead, the inside colored piece itself. So you've got the thing that gives it its color, which is pigment. Now the pigment is basically a finely ground powder. So what they need to then do is turn it into a solid form so that you could wrap the wood around it, you could say. So there's 3 ways of doing that. to make a pencil, you can have an oil-based binder, which you mix into the pigment, and that forms you basically a paste, and then that hardens, and that gives you your lead itself. The other way is to use a wax. So you melt and mix a wax into your pigment, and that solidifies into your core. And then the last way is to use what's called a gum arabic. It's basically like a loose water-based binder. Which then also solidifies and forms the core of your pencil. And then obviously it's wrapped with wood. All right, so for colored pencils, most of the time you're going to be using either the oil or the wax. The wax is the most common. So 99% of the brands on the market are pretty much wax-based. But whether you're using the oil-based or the wax-based, it doesn't matter. The techniques and the processes and everything is the same. The only difference comes in is when you're working with a watercolor pencil. That's now something different. And we'll sort of chat about that as we go along. This set here is a watercolor pencil set. So at the surface of it, if you look at the actual pencil itself, there's no way you're going to tell whether that, and let's get just a standard little pencil out here as well, whether that guy versus that guy, whether it's a watercolor pencil or a wax-based or an oil-based, if it doesn't say so on the box, you can just assume it's a wax-based one. You'll soon notice, however, when you start using it, when you're using a watercolor pencil, that gum arabic is water-based, which means that you add water to the drawing in order to sort of make the pencil itself, the color flow. With the wax and the oil-based, you need to use a solvent. So we'll chat about the solvents shortly. So it's a huge difference. Can you mix the two? Yeah, you can mix the two. At the end of the day, it's the watercolor pencil will still mix with the solvent that you use for here. But in an ideal world, with the same types together. Okay, so now here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of colored pencils. How do you know which one to buy? What's the difference between them? The difference between them is Sorry guys, I just want to check one thing. I'm checking here on my sound monitor and it seems a little bit low. Can you all hear me okay? Let me just go into my settings over there. Make sure that level is where it needs to be. Yeah, it seems okay. So I'll just wait for a few seconds for you to just confirm that my voice is coming through nice and fine. Okay. I just didn't want us to sit with a recording that's really soft. All right, let's continue. Okay, so how do you know which of these sets to buy? Which is the best one? Which is the right one? It's almost impossible for me to tell you which one to buy. What I can tell you is the difference between the lot. These guys here, the ones that you'd buy for the kids, have a lot of binder in and just a little bit of pigment because they need to sell these guys to you cheaply. And the expensive part is the pigment. So the only way to be able to sell that cheap is to have less pigment. And obviously, yeah, you'll stash a few of your kids' drawings for a memento, but let's face it, most of them end up in the bin. So you don't want to be just throwing all your expensive pigments in the bin. Well, that's not a good idea. All you want to do is have enough pigment in there so that when you draw, the color is vibrant, and that's good enough for this set over here. This set over here, if you've got a set like this at the moment, go ahead, draw with it, it'll work just fine. But just to realize that your archival ability, in other words, how long this drawing done with these pencils will last, is a lot less because there's less pigment. So it's going to be a lot less. The other downside of these guys over here is because they've added more of the binder or more of the wax binder inside this, the pencils are harder. So you'll find that in order to get a nice dark, like that kind of a, or this kind of a color, you're going to have to press really hard. And that's one of the things that you ideally don't want to do when you're doing proper colored pencil drawings. We'll see shortly when we go over to the practical side of things. If you can press softly, then and get a darker, it's better. All right, so let's put that guy aside, and that's practically the difference between all these different brands. Is they've played around with their little wax ratio and their little wax formulas and stuff in order to get the pencils to work the way they like it or they want it to work. The two most popular brands is the Caran d'Ache, this set over here, and the Prismacolor. Personally, these sets here are not mine. They're Dennis's, and this big set here is my mom's. She draws with that. I've got this set over here, which is just a local brand, and it works great. It works just great. You must just try the different brands and see which one works for you. The more expensive brands tend to be the ones that are softer pencils because they've now got less wax binder in them and more pigment. So that means you have to press. You don't have to press as soft when you're drawing in order to get a nice dark amount of pigment, a nice vibrant amount of pigment on the paper. The downside of that is that then the pencils become, because they haven't got as much binder in them, they become, I won't quite say brittle, they break easily. So that's sort of the downside. Right, so Val is asking, should we build the color by building layers same as the graphite? Yes, we absolutely do, and we'll be playing with that in a few minutes. So before I go over to that, let's open the set up. I'll just show you what it looks like. What I suggest is you buy the set with the most pencils you can afford. That's the best advice I've got for you as far as buying colored pencils. Yes, it's all good. You go for an expensive brand and stuff because everybody tells you to. And yeah, they're nice pencils. But the thing is, if your budget can only afford a set of, say, 24 of those expensive pencils, then I say rather spend that same budget and buy a little bit cheaper brand and get more pencils. because the more pencils you got, the less color mixing you need to do. Because I think you'll agree with me. If I take a look at this pencil, it's not like a paint that I can just put down and flow and mix into each other. And I can't take pigments like you do on a palette and mix them to get just the right color. I'm stuck with these colors here. So the only way that I can adjust these colors here is to physically mix them or optically mix them on the paper. So the more pencils you've got, the less of that mixing you need to do. So this set that I've got here is, I think it's 72 in it. Yeah, 72. So it's got 2 layers like that. So the first thing you want to do when you get yourself a set of pencils like this is that you want to arrange all your pencils in the order. Most will come already sorted, but some of them don't. So you need to physically go and just take them all out of here and start anyway. For example, start with a green and just put all the greens, pick them all out of the pile, and then just put them in an order that makes sense for you. So what I tend to do is I'll just follow the color wheel. So if you started with green, then you'll go around and gradually pick out the more yellower ones. Okay, so there also, those are dirtier, shadowy ones. And then you end up at yellow. And from yellow, you go to the oranges. And from the oranges, you go through to the reds. Can you see how it's sort of just running around there? And then what stopped there continued over here. So there's the purples, goes through to the blues, coming back to turquoisey greens. And then over there, those are all just browns and blacks and whites. And then I've got a random gold one over there. Why they give you a gold one, I don't know, because you're never going to use it. Okie dokie. So that's basically the pencils. Now you need something to draw on. Any sketch pad will do. The main consideration that I've got when choosing a sketch pad to work from is the weight of the paper and the texture of the paper. Those are the 2 things that I always look at. So from experience, you'll find that the 210 GSM, which means grams per square meter, it's basically the reference I can give you is 210 GSM is also roughly the same thickness that they use for a business card. So there's a nice little comparison for you. It must be as thick as a business card or thicker. And I'll tell you why. The solvent we're going to be using, you don't want that to go through here into there. And the second thing is it's got to have a bit of solidity to it, because as you're drawing, you're going to be pressing hard at points. And you don't want to press hard and then it's putting a dent in the sheet below, because then you're trashing the sheet below and you have to throw it away. So then you've basically wasted that sheet. We don't want to do that, do we? So 210 is a good, or up. All right, so the different pads also have different textures on the paper itself, graininess. Personally, I like the smooth one. It's perfectly smooth. It feels like a sheet of regular photocopy paper if you run your hand over it. I prefer that. I like to get my textures from the drawing techniques that I use. But sometimes it's nice and it's fun to work with a grainier paper. But just to realize that you're not going to, if you do have the grainier paper, you're not going to get nice smooth shadings. And to try and get smooth shadings is gonna be a lot more effort. If you've got a smooth paper, then it becomes easy for you to create nice smooth shadings. Alrighty, so let's take a look at what other equipment do we have. All right, so yeah, while I'm still on this, the one I've got here, as you can see, it says draw and wash. You get these sheets that are good for just normal pencil drawing, which in other words, it takes dry media, but it's also been sized so that it can handle wet media. So if you're working with watercolor pencils, this is also a great book to get because it's made to be able to handle the water without the paper buckling. All right, so then the next thing that you're going to need, I use two brushes. I use those guys over there. So this is just a regular bristle brush. So you buy these at the dollar store set for just for next to nothing. So you can get yourself a set of this, but it all depends on the size of the brush, all depends on the size of your paper. I find for this A4 size that I work with, this is great. Then I've got a fine liner, which I use. So this is a number 0, it doesn't really matter. Again, the size that you use is all going to depend on the size of your paper and the area that you want to work with. But these are the two guys that I tend to use. So why do we need brushes? We've got pencils. We're not painting. Well, yeah, in a sense, we are going to be doing a bit of painting because there's a little trick that we do. Let's grab a pencil. Inside this pencil, you've got, say, I'm going to use the most common as an example. We've got our wax binder, keeping that pigment together, right? So if we can dissolve that pigment, then that will allow us to do a bit of painting. So the plot thickens. So let me show you how that works. So I'm just going to take any old pencil and let's just add a little bit of pigment down here. So I'm just coloring in. I'll zoom in a minute. If I can dissolve that, then I can get it to flow a little bit. So I'm going to do it first, and then I'll tell you after that what I'm actually using. Okay, so can you see as it's dissolving, those little lines that it formed have now disappeared. Maybe I should put just a plain one there down as a reference so you can see. Can you see how it smoothed out the color? So now let me show you what I use. So that's nice. Because you can smooth out the color like that, it saves you having to scrub and draw with a pencil to try and get a nice smooth area of color. So there are various things that you can use. What I use is baby oil. Okay, so Annie's asking me, are you talking about colored pencils in general, the oil and the wax ones, or the watercolor pencils? No, I'm talking about the oil or the wax-based colored pencils. when it comes to watercolor pencils, then you use water to spread it like that, to dissolve the binder. So what I use for the wax and the oil is the baby oil. I've seen lots of places people recommending you use sorts of other goodies, like brush cleaner, for example, or petroleum jelly, odorless mineral spirits. I don't recommend you use any of those, and I'm going to tell you why. Things like brush cleaner or odorless mineral spirits, their job is designed to break down the bond between the pigment. So now, yes, it is going to dissolve the wax or the oil that's binding the pencil, but it's also destroying the whole bond that you've got on the pigment itself. So that means, let's face it, those things are designed to clean your brush, to get rid of the paint, to destroy the paint, so that your brush can come clean. So if you're now putting that on your artwork, it's destroying your artwork. So don't even consider using one of those. So if you've got them now, throw them away. Go buy baby oil at the $2 shop. It's much better. The baby oil is oil. So think of it this way: if it's good enough to put on your baby's skin and safe enough, there's no hassles. So all that oil does is just basically, you can sort of think of it as it reactivates that oil or the wax that's inside there. So that's all you're really doing when you're using the baby oil. So that's why I say it's the safer option and the better option. Then obviously your brush cleaners and mineral spirits and those things, yes, it's you're buying it and it says odorless and all that kind of stuff. Odorless doesn't mean safe. You've still got those fumes in the air. So this is what I use. So I've got just a little bowl like this, and then I just put a little bit. I think you can see it lying there. I put just a little bit in this bowl at a time, because you don't want pots of it. You don't want to, like you would when you're working with watercolor pencils, then you'd sometimes scoop up tons of water and spread it out and so on, so that the pigment inside from the pencil can flow. We don't work like that. It doesn't. Your wax and oil-based pencils don't flow like that. They'll move, but they won't flow. they'll just move around a little bit. You can sort of think of it this way, as if you take a candle and you drip the drop will come down and it will just spread a little bit, and then it cools and then it stops. The same thing is happening here. You're adding that little bit of baby oil to it. And now let's say that this here's the ball of pigment with the wax around it lying on top of your paper. So now you add your baby oil and it sort of dissolves it, and it does this. It can't go any further. So those are the kind of movements that you're going to get with colored pencil. Okay, so Malin is asking the $1 million question. Won't it make your picture gummy and will it dry in time? No. The big secret is, when you're using the oil, or the baby oil, is tiny, tiny amounts. When I pick up the baby oil, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I can zoom in so you can really see the edge of the oil there. Okay, can you see the edge of the oil over there? I'll just touch the tip of the brush inside that oil, and now look what I'm doing. I'm running it out, so that the majority that has now zoomed into the brush is being deposited back down there again. If you're scared, let's say for example you end up like that, and you've now got this whole brush full of baby oil. Just grab some kitchen towel. And grab a piece. I'll have to zoom out again. And just tap it on there to just soak up that excess. You don't want any excess. If you have too much oil and now you end up over here and you're adding pots of baby oil, like really laying it on like you would with water or whatever, it's going to sink into the paper, and that's not what you want. You want as little baby oil as possible because you want it to just lie on the top of the surface. It must just be enough to work into the pencil and the pigment that's already lying there. So you'll see as we go along, I only use this right at the end. It's the last thing that I do is to use the baby oil. I'm not going to put down some, do a little bit of drawing, put baby oil, put a bit more drawing, do some more baby oil. I'm going to let the pencil do 99.9% of the work for me. And then the baby oil right at the end is just going to do a little bit of smoothing for me and do that, help me with the last little bit of blending. All right, so the next bit of equipment we've got is this guy over here. So the one I've got here is a just get this guy to focus for us. So the next bit of equipment I've got here is a blending pencil. So the brand I've got is a Derwent, but you get different brands and different makes as well. And you get two different types of blending pencils. This one over here, basically what it is the wax that's inside the pencil that they use to bind the pigment. This is just that wax. That's all it is. It's a stick of that wax. So you can use this guy to blend as well. So let's go to, say, that one over there. So you just use this guy and you rub over there. So all it's doing is it's adding more wax. Now I'm not applying any pressure. Absolutely no pressure. I'm just rubbing the pencil over there. Can you see how it's also helped to smooth that out? So if you just need little areas of shadings or smoothing out, then this pencil is what you're going to be using. You're using the oil when you're blending large areas. For example, a background, or let's say you've drawn a whole apple and now you want to just smooth out that whole surface of the apple, then the baby oil does the trick. If you've, let's say for example, you're drawing what? Let's say a color wheel, just as an example. now you've filled in that little area of green there. So now that little area of green, you're going to use this guy to blend him, not the baby oil. So as I said, you get two different types like this. This is the one with the wax filling. You get another one which is actually like a it looks more like a felt tip pen. So that there is actually not, it's got the manufacturer's own little solvent in there. you can use those guys, they're great. It's as good as adding a little bit of baby oil. I prefer to use this one, I'll be honest, because again, I don't know what the manufacturer's chucked into his little pen gadget. For all I know, it could be brush cleaner. So you do tend to trust the manufacturers a bit more to believe that they won't have a brush cleaner in there, but you don't know. So I don't know. I'm still skeptical of those ones. Maybe in 50 years, let's face it, colored pencil drawing is a reasonably new art form. Maybe in 50 years, I'll be able to look back at people's drawings and say, all right, those blending pencils work well. You do get another pencil as well. I've got one here, and this is called a burnishing pencil. So what on earth is burnishing? Burnishing is when you apply lots of pressure to the pencils and to basically the wax that you've laid down. What it then does is, because you're applying a lot of pressure, or not to the wax, sorry, to the paper, because you're applying a lot of pressure, you are basically smoothing out the weave of the paper. If I look at this paper under a microscope from the side, it's going to look like this. It's not, even though it's smooth here, on a microscopic level, it's not. It's rough. So now you come with your burnisher. So this is basically a really hard, but essentially it's a really hard white pencil. So what you're doing is, now you come over this and you're burnishing. So that also has the same effect as smoothing, like your blending pencil has. But what it's also doing, because this thing is hard, you're pressing hard, and it's now smoothing that surface of the paper out like that. And now the wax and the pigment that's lying on top of that paper is being squeezed into these little grooves and things as well, into the paper. So in other words, because it's nice and smooth now, you'll find that you get a nice, almost like a shiny surface, or a shiny look to your pencil drawings. So a lot of people like that shiny look. And it's all good. You can do that. I've got no problem with it. On one condition. You do it right at the end. And the reason for that is, when you, let's redraw our squiggly paper again, the surface of our paper. When you're drawing, what you're doing, you're rubbing over with your pencil. You're rubbing over that surface there like that. And now some of this pencil, the pigment and the wax, is now getting stuck in these little grooves. So essentially what you're doing is this. So let me do it with another color so we can see. Let's maybe use a green. Let's grab a green there. So as you're rubbing over it, this is happening. And then sometimes you'll have a little, maybe there's a bit of a deeper dent in that paper. And as you're rubbing over here, your pencil can't get in there. So that's why as you rubbing over like this, you get not a perfect, nice, smooth fill like this. It looks a little bit, you can see like dotty or grainy. It's because right on the high marks, your pencil would sort of snag there, and you're going to get lots of pigment here and nothing next to it, because it's sort of, your pencil is bouncing off there. Or it's either that, or it's a valley like this, and the pencil is simply too, the tip is too broad. It just slides over the top. It can't dent and go in there to fill up that little valley. And that's why you get that little dotted look. So needless to say, that how rougher your paper is, the more dotty it is, because the more valleys and peaks you've got. So now you come with your burnisher. You've got all that lying over there. So the burnisher takes that and it's forcing it into those little points over there. It's forcing down that little peak, and it's moving just that little bit of pigment over it, and you get a nice little thing. But the problem is, because it's now smooth, now there's no more tooth left on that paper. So now you can't lay down your more pigment over that, because there's no tooth for your pigment to grip onto. So that's why I say you can burnish, but right at the end as the last thing that you do to your drawing. I'm not a fan of burnishing. I've got the pencil, has been lying here. It's old as the hills, and I just simply don't use it. You'll find that as you're drawing, you'll get a natural burnishing is going to happen. Because as you draw, you're going to start off soft, and then to get your darker darks, you're going to press harder and harder. So that's where your a natural kind of burnishing happens. All right, the next bit of equipment is I've got a pen-shaped eraser. So this is, it works the same as a mechanical pencil, except on the inside over here, it's got a little round cylinder of eraser. So that's nice for erasing. I also use just a regular eraser as well. So these are your normal plastic erasers. And then the other one is you can use a kneaded eraser. I find that it's not quite so easy to erase the colored pencils as it would be with a graphite pencil. So instead of the kneaded eraser, I use it's called Blu Tack. Let me see if I can get the holder for you. So you get various brands. You don't have to buy Blu Tack. Blu Tack isn't available all around the world. Basically, what this is it's almost like a bit of a putty, which you can normally you're going to take this, break off a little piece, and let's say you want to stick a poster to a wall. So you're going to take 4 of these, one on each corner, and that's going to help you stick your poster to the wall. There's also another great use for it, seeing as we are artists. I take a little bit of Blu Tack and I put it on the bottom corner of each of my paintings, like that. And like that, once they're hanging up on the wall. So this is on each corner, and there's my frame over there. So that gives you just that little bit of height off the wall, and then you don't get that line of dust on the wall. But anyway, so that's what Blu Tack is supposed to be for. You can buy this at any one of your dollar store, your stationery store. Just tell them you want a repositionable adhesive putty, and they'll know what you're talking about. So my dollar store's got various brands of it. So So Val is asking, will the blue tack work with watercolor pencils? Yes, it will to a degree. So here's my caveat, and this is sort of the thing with colored pencils, why it's not so easy to erase them. So you do have to plan a little bit more. As you're drawing, depending on how hard or how soft your pencils are, you're applying pressure. And because you're applying pressure to your paper, it's going into those little grooves. So now even whether you're using this or this, to lift out that pigment that you've squeezed into the grooves is not so easy because of the wax or the oil has got quite a bit of a sticky. Yes, it binds to the paper. So that's why it's not so easy to erase. So this guy here is good for once you've laid down stuff, your pigment, and now you can tap on it. Because it's nice and sticky, you can actually hear it. You hear that? So that will help you lift up some of it, but you're never going to lift it up completely. So by the same token, it'll work with your watercolor pencils because there's the binder, the gum arabic that's inside there is less sticky or it doesn't adhere as hard to the watercolor pencils as the oil or the wax would. But the minute you've used water over that, it's toast. You're not going to lift it up anymore. You can maybe with this do some lifting, but your kneaded eraser or your blue tack is going to help you nothing. So that's why I've used the blue tack instead of the kneaded eraser, simply because it's more sticky. It's more tacky than the regular kneaded eraser. So it just sticks, it lets more pigment grip to it than a regular eraser would. All right, so let's zoom back in on that little bit over there again. Here, is that fully focused? It's like my camera doesn't want to focus so nice today. Guys, just give me 2 seconds. Maybe the lens is just a tad dirty or something. I don't know why it doesn't want to lock on the focus today. Maybe it's got a fingerprint on there. So sorry about the... Close your eyes. Let's see if that's helped. Seems better. We'll soon tell. Okay, so here I've got the baby oil. So even there, you'll find now it's becoming very difficult to erase. You can do some erasing, but it's not going to fully erase. Why? Because you've dissolved some of the wax and it's now sunk into the paper. So like here, we've got nothing. And I have blended it and stuff, so I have applied some pressure, but here you can still erase. But even then, you've still got a little bit of color left there. You're never going to get yourself all the way back to neat white. That's not going to happen. So the trick when working with colored pencils is to plan like you would in watercolor. When you're painting in watercolor, is to plan your whites and avoid those white areas like the plague until right at the end. And when you're happy, then you come and you just fix up the little area around the white to get your blending right. If you're using watercolor pencils to do your colored pencil drawing, then as with normal watercolors, by all means go ahead and use your masking fluid and mask it off. you can't use it with the wax or the oil-based pencils though. All right, so the next bit of equipment I've got is just a brush. So I've got a nice little super soft mob brush, and that is just for times when you're erasing and stuff. Let's just erase there a little bit. Then you end up with those little erasing pieces there. So this is just to flip them out the way, because you obviously now don't want to go and rub over there with your finger or anything, because then you just blend what's lying over there over your erased area, and you're adding color back in there. This guy's so super soft, it just gently flips it away without doing any blending or anything like that. The next thing that I've got is a craft knife. So you can use your craft knife also right at the end. Sometimes, unfortunately, you do now miss a little highlight or so, or maybe just a little bit of detail that was extremely difficult for you to avoid. So let's just lay down a little bit more over here. So maybe you got something like this, so now you just need to add a little bit of a highlight or a little something in there, but only also right at the end. And when you do it, you're going to be really gentle. So I'm going to take the knife, and I can just gently scrape over an area. So that allows me to work out little details. I haven't pressed hard because the minute you're working with a knife, you're scratching the paper, so you're hurting the surface of the paper. So you don't want to work hard, you want to work really, really soft. Let the sharpness of the tip do the work. The minute you press hard, then you're going to scratch and rip the surface of the paper, and that's not what you want. All you're trying to do is just gently scratch off the wax and the pigment that's lying there. So absolutely no pressure. So you'll notice that I can't just rip a little line in there. I'm going to have to go over that same spot a few times. And eventually it lifts off. You see that? So he's handy to get nice little detail work back in. And then I've just got a regular pencil sharpener, nothing funny like that or about that. Let's take a look. Another thing that I've got, which works, but it doesn't work fantastically, is let's lay down a little bit more color here. And it only works before you've used any oil and before you've done any burnishing or anything like that. Before you've pressed really hard. If you press nice and light, then it will work. And that is, I've got some low tack masking tape. So you can use this, and you can also use, I'm just trying to think what's the name. It's like a sellotape, but it doesn't stick as much. I think it's called a magic tape, Scotch magic tape or something like that. That also works because it's a low tack. So you can stick it down onto the paper and you can lift it off without it ripping or damaging the paper. So the way this works is you can take this, and let's say you just want to lighten that up a little bit. Then this guy works great for lifting that out. what I can also do is you can just press your finger over this a little bit to make it even less tacky, or you can just touch it to your shirt or your pants, just to get rid of that hectic tackiness, so that when you put it down here, it's not really sticking. So you can do that. And now you can grab your blender pencil, or any pencil for that matter, and now you can just make a, let's say for example, a squiggle or so, and then it lifts out that squiggle. So that's what the low-tack masking tape works nicely for. So you can get the low-tack masking tape at any one of your hardware stores and so on. Your craft store should have it as well, but I usually go to the hardware store, they're cheaper. And yeah, I think that's it as far as the actual equipment is concerned. So the next thing we need to do is, let's take a look. Oh yes, there is one more thing that I do have as well. I'll often keep just a spare piece of paper next to my drawing. Just a regular photocopy paper. And what I use this for is, as you work, sometimes you want to do you need to optically mix your colors, right? To get different colors. You're not sure of the mix. So let's say, for example, you've just spent 3 hours, you're busy with a portrait, and you've got your face that is looking beautiful, and now you come to the shirt and you're not sure how that shirt color looks. So instead of just going ahead and randomly mixing colors here on your paper and possibly getting it wrong, you do a quick little test here just on a scrap piece of paper. So I'll often have a little scrap piece of paper for that. Then I got another scrap piece of paper, and that's for protecting my drawing. So now you've got your portrait and it's all over here, it's beautiful, and now you see, oh, I need to do a little bit of work there on the hair on that side. So now you take a clean piece of paper, also just regular photocopy paper, and now you lay it over your drawing. Now, notice how I'm putting it down. I'm not sliding it in, I'm putting it down. And I could put my hand down over there and I could work over here, and I'm protecting my whole drawing over here. If I need to move this, I'll pick it up like that, not just slide it along, because the minute you slide it, you're moving pigment around. So you lift it and put it down, lift it and put it down. And that's where you're protecting your drawing as you go along. Okay, so now you decide, all right, I'm going to do this picture. How do you get that over here onto your drawing paper? So there are a few ways. You can just use a regular graphite pencil and you can draw it out over here. You can also use one of your colored pencils, maybe let's say, for example, you're doing a portrait, so maybe you'll decide to use like a bit of a skin tone color, maybe something like this, like a mustardy kind of thing. And do your drawing work with that. And then just erase whatever you don't need. So while we're chatting about using just a regular graphite pencil, the graphite and the colored pencils don't really mix. So you don't want to, if I can't, for example, go and do an area of shading here and then add colored pencils over it. It doesn't quite work as well as that. If you want to do that kind of a looking artwork, then you'd rather use one of your grays, one of those guys over there. So if you are going to use a regular graphite pencil to do your drawing work, so let's say, for example, you've drawn something out. I don't know, what can we draw? I did bring an apple here that we can do as a sample. So what the heck, we'll draw it out with a graphite pencil. Let's maybe put him at a bit of an angle. So I can't quite see what you're seeing because my angle is now different to the camera. But now let's say, for example, you've drawn that out over there. Here you've got this little piece over there. Erase anything that's not necessary. Because A is gray and the apple itself is red. So there's a good chance that in the end of the day, all these lines are going to show through anyway. So that's what you do. You erase any excess, and as you're drawing, press as lightly as what you possibly can. Then what you do is right at the end, take your blue tack, roll it out into just on the table, not on your drawing paper. Roll it out into just a nice long sausage for shape like this. And then roll it over your whole drawing. Just once or twice. And you'll see what it does is it's now lifting up some of that graphite over there. And I can still see the lines. I don't know if you can anymore, but they're still there, they're still visible, and they're really light. So by the time you finish drawing, that little bit of lines that are left over there will disappear on you. You won't see them anymore. So they won't shine through in the final drawing. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to draw all your work out just on a scrap piece of paper. For example, a piece of photocopy paper. So now you can draw out let's say there's your apple over there. You do all your work like that, and you're erasing whatever, and you can draw nice and dark and everything. It's not a problem. Then you can transfer that guy. I mean, so sometimes as you're drawing, you mess up. Let's say, for example, you battled with this corner here, just as a random example. And now you're erasing, and eventually this gets quite dirty and stuff. Not looking so good anymore. You don't want that kind of a thing on your final drawing, right? So it doesn't matter what this piece of paper looks like. It could look like a dog's breakfast. You don't care. What you then do is you take just another piece of photocopy paper, and then you use any soft pencil. So what I use is, where is he? He's disappeared on me. There he is. What I use is just a graphite stick. And I got this stick with a set of pencils that I bought. So all it is basically a 6B lead without the wood around it. It's and I just rub that. But you can use any pencil, a 2B, 4B, 6B, 8B, any one of those B pencils. Just scrub it over a piece of paper to fill it up. So what you're doing is you're basically forming yourself your own little graphite transfer or tracing paper. So now you can take this and you can turn him around, gently lay him on here. So I'm going to just put him down there. Gently lay him down, because obviously that's not full of graphite. Gently put this guy in the place where you want it. So let's say over there. And now you can go and trace this guy. And now obviously as you're tracing, you're just drawing the exact lines that you want. And as you pick this guy up, pick it up upwards like that so it doesn't rub over your paper. And ta-da, just like that. There you've got just the perfect lines, and you've got a nice soft drawing there already. So obviously I've got 2 apples. I'll have to erase that one. So that's another way. So now on this piece of paper here, you can now go and do grid works and anything that you need to. And then obviously there's the lazy way, the way I do it. I print out a sheets of paper with the picture that I'm going to draw to exactly the correct size that I wanted over here. And then I'm going to use my graphite paper like that. I'm going to lay it down there, put it down, my photograph, draw out all the outlines that I need to. And there we go. So I don't have to worry about grid work or anything funny like that. Whatever you do, don't use normal carbon paper unless you're willing to live with those dark blue outlines. It doesn't work. By the same token, I use for the painting, I use dressmaker's carbon paper, which is great because it comes in different colors, blue and yellow and green and so on. I don't use that here either, simply because it doesn't lift. You can't erase it. So you have to sort of do it this way. Okay, so enough waffle. Let's start getting some. Let's start playing with our pencils. When we're working with colored pencils, we work from light through to dark. Let's see. Yeah, let's just use this here as an example for now. We work from light through to dark. Because remember, we have to preserve our lights. So let's say, for example, we want to draw that guy over there. So you're going to start off around that area there with the lightest color. And then you're going to work your way outwards, gradually going darker and darker. So that's the one reason, because we need to preserve our lights. The second reason is because of the erasing and stuff, we don't want to press harder than necessary, because then we can't lift anything out. The minute we press hard, that's when we start burnishing our paper, and then we can't lay more pigment down on top of it. So you want to press as light as possible for as long as possible. So you're going to start with your light, and you're going to gradually go darker and darker. So there's two ways to start light and gradually go dark. In other words, there's two ways that you can use to get different tonal values of the same color. So let's say, for example, seeing as we're working with a purple, let's stick with it. The first way is to press lighter and softer on the paper. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to press really soft as I possibly can. Let me zoom in on that area. My pencil is just caressing the surface of the paper. And as I move along, I'm going to gradually press harder and harder and harder. And by doing that, that's giving me a shading. The next way to do it is to use different pencils. For example, I've got that guy over there, that guy over there, I've got that guy over there, and that looks like no, he's not quite going to squeeze in. All right, yeah, let's do there, and there. So if I take a look at the tips, see these, you'll find that sometimes these back isn't 100% representative. So look at the tip. So dark, middle, light. So let's start off with the light. And I'll take him further than he needs to go. Can you see that? So I'm sort of copying that over there. So I'll take him well into the middle area. Let's take the next darker one. I'll start here in the middle area. I'll take him well into the dark. Then you end up with a dark guy. So at this stage I'm not pressing any harder or softer or anything like that. It's the same pressure. And that's giving me a shading. So obviously, more often than not, you're going to be using a combination of the two. So for example, here I've got the dark, so I'm going to press hard and then softer. As I reach into the mid-tone area, press softer, see that? Now I'm going to get my next darker pencil. I'll start here in the dark area. I'll work into the lighter area, and also going lighter and lighter and lighter as I go along. So eventually that one disappears on me. Now I can go to the lightest pencil. And I'll start here in the mid-tone area, pressing quite hard. And as I come out this way, I'm pressing softer and softer and softer. And there we go. There's my 3 ways to shade. So needless to say, that's the guy you're going to be using most of the time. Okay, so what we need to look at now is just the different, how do we mix our colors? I don't know. Let's say, for example, we've got that. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to go and take a look at your pencils. See which pencil have I got that's closest to that color over there. So it seems to be, say, one of these guys over here, eh? Possibly, maybe even that one. Okay, so let's say maybe it's this guy over here. So that's where your scrap piece of paper often will come in. See, we're playing today. We'll just draw straight onto our drawing paper. But if you're not sure, use your scrap piece of paper and do a quick little test. As you go along and you've used your pencils and you've done a variety of drawings, you're gradually going to get to know exactly what color each pencil is going to give you. Then becomes easier to decide which pencil to use. Okay, so let's do that. I'll start off too light. Remember, always too light. It's really easy to darken, not quite so easy to lift up. So let's fill in our area over there. And now we're trying to sort of match that color. So I'm going to lay them down. And I'm going to try and see what color is missing. from this color that I've got lying down here. Is this green I've got over here, is he yellower, bluer, grayer, redder, or what more than this one over here? So the first thing I can see is this guy here is too light. So he's lighter. I usually like to get the tonal value closer first. Okay, so I'm going to lay this thing down. So as you're drawing with colored pencils, you really have to be patient. It's a time-consuming hobby, this one, art form. All right, so let's lay that guy down, and I can definitely see this guy is yellower. So now I'm going to see, do I have a yellower green? Yes, I do have a yellower green, so let's use him. If I don't have a yellower green, then I'm going to just use a yellow, and I'm going to lay a yellow over this guy. Okay, so yellows definitely helps. I'm happy with that now. This guy here just now seems to be a bit duller. So to go duller, you can either just use a dirtier green. So I have a dirty green here. See, it's like a real muddy, ugly green. I can use that. Or you can use your standard color mixing rules. So I'll show you that in a few seconds. But guys, just let me know if you're still with me. Everything seems to be running finely on my side. Just let me know. Okay, I'll wait a few seconds just to make sure that everybody's told me they're good to go. Don't want anybody to get behind. Okay, is everybody up and running again? Good, yeah. Okay, fantastic. Let's continue. Okay, so I'll repeat that last little bit then. So now I can see this thing here needs to go a bit darker. See that one there seems to be like a dirtier green than this one. So there's two ways of doing it. I can pick up a dirtier green from my collection of pencils, or I can use the standard color mixing rules to mix on the actual drawing itself. So as far as the color mixing rules are concerned, I will quickly run through them for you in a minute, but you'd add a little bit of the opposite color in there. But for now, I think let's just use a bit of a dirtier color. The idea here is not to match this color perfectly. The idea is just to show you how we get to a color. You can sort of think of it as additive mixing. You're layering one color over the next. To get the final color that you need. So to get your colors matching and stuff like that, so I think that's not too shabby a mix. Knowing the color wheel and the color mixing rules is your best friend. If you don't know your color mixing rules, I promise you are going to battle. You're going to be winging your colors. and they're going to be off. So let's quickly go through the color mixing rules. So I do have other classes and videos with the color mixing rules, which goes into a lot more depth. So I'm just going to quickly run through them so that they're here and you can use them as a refresher. So we've got 3 primary colors: yellow, red, and blue. You can't mix those guys. You need to use them from a pencil. The other colors, though, we can mix. So in other words, you can happily buy yourself lots of variations of yellows, reds, and blues to get the different yellows, reds, and blues. All the other colors we can mix. So out of yellow and red, a secondary color, we mix a secondary color called orange. Out of yellow and blue, we mix a next secondary color, which is green. And out of red and blue, we mix another secondary color, which is purple. So how would you do that in real life over here? So let's say just do an orange. So you take a red. And now depending on the type of orange that you want, because you can see there's tertiary colors and stuff as well, with more of a mustard orange or a deep orange. It all depends on what kind of orange you want. Is going to determine, are you going to start putting down red first, or are you going to start putting yellow down first? So you're going to put down some red in this case. I'll just put in a layering down there. And now we're going to take some yellow and we'll lay that over the red. And now those guys are going to optically mix, because what's actually happening there is that they're not physically mixing. They haven't physically blended one color into each other. If we go back to here, what's happened there is we've got our, let's do our squiggly paper again. There's our squiggly surface of the paper. So now you've come with your red. So where's our red? There's this guy. And now you've rubbed over the surface. So now you've got some red lying, say, here and here, here. Sort of lying down there now. And now you're coming with your yellow. And some of it is lying on top of it, some of it is lying in the little gaps in between, and so on. And your eye is blending those colors together for you. That's how magic your eye is. It does that. And it's making it look orange. Where if you put this under a microscope, you're going to see little dots of red, you're going to see little dots of yellow, and 0 orange.